Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner. Share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Tina.
Hey, Joy, welcome back.
Hey, how are you?
It's winter. Winter is starting to kick in here in Virginia, but what does it look like?
It's a heated blanket, so it's
Really?
yeah, it keeps me warm. I'm in my office, and it tends to get a little chilly because I'm just sitting here. So
And you're
and
in New York?
gloves. What's that?
You're in New York?
I'm in New York.
You're in New York.
It's
What's the
cold.
temperature like now for you?
What is the temperature? The temperature is 36 degrees.
Okay, and we are recording this on a Thursday night, and this is my actual last conversation for 2024.
Whereby it's only going to get colder.
Yes, absolutely. It is a bit nippy here in Virginia, but it was that cold, I think, yesterday, and I was told next week is supposed to be in the 60s.
Oh, well, good for you. We'll get like 40s next week, but today was very windy. So at 36 degrees, and it was very windy. I was out with the dogs walking, and I thought, oh, I can't wait to get home.
I can hear
My
the wind outside now. When you say how many dogs do you have?
3,
You have 3. Okay.
you
Did
know,
you
that's what happens when you become a widow and you don't have a social community around you. You build a social community, and since you can't create people, you buy dogs.
Okay, so you did you have the dogs before or since your husband passed?
I've always had dogs.
Okay.
Always had dogs. And they were always my um mm, I don't know, sanity, or they were always there for me when I needed to escape humanity.
Okay.
It's like sometimes humanity is just like, oh my goodness, right? But humans need social community. We
We
really
do.
do.
We
Really do.
do.
And you just don't after high school, you just can't find friends the way you used to. It's not the same thing. It's literally
Really.
not, high school is like a store for friends.
See, for me, high school was not the best. I flourished after high school. It was not the cozy situation. Yeah, high school was not it for me. It was after high school where life became more interesting. But I guess if that was the interesting part, going forward would be more challenging. So I could see how that could change. For people that may have not caught our conversation before, would you mind sharing your late husband's name with us?
So it was Harold Brooks, and I only called him Harold when I was pissed off. It was Harry. All his family referred to him as Harold, so I
Oh,
guess they were always pissed off. I don't know. Um, And when I would call him Harry, they would be like, they'd do one of these head cock things like, Harry? Harry? Oh, Harold. Yeah, Harold. Um, but he refers to himself as Harry. So
okay. Okay. So the 3 dogs you have now, did you have those with Harry or did you get them since he
I
passed?
had 2 of the dogs, and one of them was getting old when Harry was going through cancer, and he would always complain, oh, she's snoring, oh, she's this, oh, she's that. And she's still alive 3 years later. And so, it's funny how things end up. She's not snoring anymore, though. She doesn't have,
Interesting.
yeah, she doesn't snore anymore. It's kind of funny. I
So,
thought about that the other day. Like, she doesn't snore anymore. When did that stop?
huh. So 3 years being a widow. What has 2024 looked like for you?
What did it look like for me? So it was the year I retired, and I sort of retired in 2023, but I retired from full-time work and I kept all of my part-time gigs. But in 2024, July of 2024, um, 3 of my part-time gigs ended
Okay, so
because
hold on,
they're
let's
all
back up a little bit.
contract,
What
they're
was full
contract work.
what was full-time work for you?
All of my work is email marketing
Okay.
related. So I had a full-time client,
Okay.
and that was 2023 when that contract ended. That was a long-term full-time contract,
Okay.
and that ended. And I kept my part-time gigs. I had, like I said, 3 or 4 part-time gigs, and then all of them slowly started to end. And
Hmm.
with part-time gigs where you're working on particular projects, you expect at some point in time you're going to solve the project. You're going to succeed, and it's going to be over.
Right.
So I always knew that. I always knew that. And but they extended, and I had one client that was like 5 years
Wow.
of
And that was a
part-time.
part-time.
Mhm.
Okay.
But as they ended, I thought to myself, this year, I'm like, let them end. Let them end. See what happens. You're 69. Stop. You don't have to do this. You need to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life. You need to slow down a little bit. You're not proving anything to anybody, you know. And you do need to think about your next chapter. And I don't know what the next chapter is. So I'm like, force yourself into that. And if monetarily it's a problem, then you know that. If it's I don't have enough to do problem, then you know that. But figure out what the next few years of your life will look like. You're riding out an old routine that may have run its gamut, right? And I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. And as they ended, I was like, well, someone's telling me to end these. So let them end. Don't get hysterical. Let them end. And so I'm carrying one client and thinking to myself, so what do I do with all that extra time? All right, so now I walk 3 dogs 2 times a day, which is good. It gets me out. It's
And
a
about how
90
far is the walk?
90 minutes.
Okay.
So they're about 2-mile, 2.5-mile walk each. In the winter, it sort of peters down. The second walk will end because there's only so much daylight,
Hmm.
and it's bloody cold. So it's
Yeah.
like, this is not even. I can't even. If I'm cold, if my fingers are freezing, what are their little toes doing?
Hmm.
No, I'm not putting them in booties. I mean, I have a husky that has hairy toes. She doesn't care. She's
Right.
thrilled. I have an old lady that I have to realize, grandma, poor grandma, you're freezing grandma. That's not good. And then I have a Boston Terrier, which, I mean, she's okay. She's very active, but she's not the hairiest thing. She's short haired. So I'm like,
Right.
they have coats. The 2 dogs have coats. The husky is a coat. So 2 walks a day, which breaks up my days. And I wake up in the morning at 5 in the morning. I wake up because the dogs need to go out, and then they want to eat, and then they need to be walked. So it's around 9 o'clock-ish. And I'm reading for a little while. Now it's 10:30. Oh, maybe that one client needs something done. I do a little work. Oh, guess what? It's lunchtime. Oh, guess what? Oh, let's go for a walk again. Oh, what do I do with, this is the new routine, and I'm trying to figure out, what is this new routine? What do I do with it? Nowhere in it have I ever said to myself, oh, I should go out and meet people. That's never come up.
I was just about to ask you that, so thank you for mentioning that. But I want to circle back to a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
The monetary part.
Mm.
Do you connect with other widows and hear their monetary struggles?
No, I think it would scare the heck out of me, but it's a big deal
It
because it
is.
scares me.
It is. So I want to circle back to something you just said. The monetary part about being a widow. Do you have connections with other widows besides myself, or am I your lone ranger over here?
Um, I have a close friend of mine is a divorcee. Okay. She's still working. Another friend of mine who, I mean, it's an acquaintance, she's a widow, but I do not have a network of widows around me. I
Okay.
also don't have a network of lots of friends around me. I've
Okay.
got neighbors, I've got 3 dogs, and one friend that I do a lot with, and a lot of other acquaintances that I connect with on occasion, catch up with, happy birthday type of things. And I have some high school friends that I talk with, but they're not in New York.
Okay. So to the point regarding the financial impact of being a widow, and you may have looked at the statistics and just looked at the idea of the financial burden that is placed on generally the way society is set up. A lot of times women are still making less than their partner. And if you're in this traditional household where you're staying home full time, it changes the game.
Yeah.
It changes so much. There are so many people that I have spoken to that they dare not mention their financial stressors because people can hardly take the weight of their grief, just period. Not to mention, we didn't plan for a will, we didn't plan for life insurance. All I had was his last paycheck. I received $200 from Social Security when he passed, but the amount of money I'm getting for his Social Security doesn't cover. There was no retirement plan. And just on and on. And people say, well, we didn't want to talk about that, or they were so young, or I just didn't think it was important right now. We could do that later. People that are married listening to this conversation, what would you share with them from your experience that would help them for the long term?
Oh boy, it's a big deal. It really is a big deal. And it's not something that anybody wants to think about, right? So, um, I mean, it even gets more complicated with children, right? So let's say you're a stay-at-home mom. Okay, let's say you're a stay-at-home mom. If you're riding on paycheck to paycheck and there's nothing there, that's scary. That's very scary. And I'm sure there are a lot of people doing that. That's not a good situation. And I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say about that. I had the opposite because Harry had a few complications that took him out of the workforce for 10 years. So I was the breadwinner. And we didn't have children because we were married later on. So, I mean, that situation was a little different. And I can only say that I was always concerned about money because I was the breadwinner, but I was always concerned about money. So I was always working. I would go nuts if I wasn't working. That's the type of person I am. I understand that there are other people that don't think that way. But I would say that for every, oh gosh, for every woman out there, you have children, but you're living from paycheck to paycheck. You need to think of some way to make some money. And that's a horrible thing to say because
Why is it a horrible thing to say?
it really makes for anxiety. It's like, oh, how am I going to do that? I've got dinners and children and things to do around the house, and now you're telling me I should have a job too. That it is a job, but if you're living, it's not that your work and your work with your children and being the homemaker of the house is not a job. That's not the point. The point is, if you're living from paycheck to paycheck, that's the problem.
Right.
That's the
But people
problem.
people don't like to talk about money, but it is something it's a necessity in the world in which we live. You don't get very far or much without some monetary backup.
Right. Right.
And so imagine if you're just getting by now with them working, when the inevitable happens,
Okay.
how are you prepared for that? So, like yourself, I've worked since I want to say like 10 years old, since I could
I was
babysit.
going to say, I've worked forever.
Right.
It started as babysitting and it just never
Yes.
stopped.
And so I was babysitting, then had a job at a fast food restaurant. Then
Right.
I went into the military. I've always had a job, but there was a stint that, I was home full time, but I was still in the Army Reserves. I didn't give that up. It wasn't a lot, but it allowed me now. I mean, I spent 5.5 years active duty in the military, the remaining Army Reserves. I have a retirement check from that at the age of 60.
Right.
And that's a decent amount of money. But it would seem very hard pressed to survive only on
Right.
someone's Social Security check. Now, if you had children, then you would have their minors or still in college, wherever that lays, that you would have money for that. But we do ourselves a disservice by not talking about the adult conversations we need to
That's
have.
right. That's right. And my husband was not aware of his benefits.
Okay.
Um, and when I would try to talk with him about it, I was the financial person. He was not. So
Same with me. Okay.
when I would try to talk to him about that, he'd be like, I don't know, I don't know. So I said to him one day, I said, now he was in a union. So I said, Harry, do you mind if I talk to your union rep? And he goes, no, I don't. And he said, no, I don't. So I called up the union rep and I said, Harry's got cancer. I just want to know what's going on here. He said, point blank, you have nothing to worry about. I'm like,
What
I
type of
don't.
union was he in?
551, 773. He was in a bunch of different unions, but he
Okay,
worked
so
for,
my husband was International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Union.
okay,
What
Harry
trade?
was, I can't remember. I don't know. It wasn't Teamster. He was always he was always in a union,
Okay.
everything that he did. So
And
he
so for
worked for,
someone that doesn't know the union or heard of it, what does that mean to you when you talk about being unionized?
he always worked um, in a field that had the support of a established union. So when he was when he was a contractor, it possibly was the Teamsters. I don't remember.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it was there's Teamsters. What's the other union?
Well, see, with my husband, his organization, it was the International Brotherhood of
Right,
Electrical Workers. So
right,
they had an international overarching board, and then local municipalities had their own group of people. And what I found with the union, they really took care of their people. They
yes,
made
they
sure that
do.
they had safe working conditions, that they made sure they were being treated fairly, that there was fair wages. So that group of people stood on their behalf. to be the intermediary between them and the employer to make sure that people were not taken advantage of. When I think of unions, I think of like teacher unions or United Auto Workers or some of those organizations. But if it were not for those organizations, a company that rightfully so is trying to make business would do that at the cost of their employees. So I think those organizations prevented that and were there to stand up for the employees when I think of a union.
Yeah, he worked for a oil and heating company.
Okay. So
So
HVAC, that kind of stuff, doing
yeah, sort of,
in that
yeah, along
that
those lines.
family. Okay.
And when I did speak with the union rep, he's like, "Don't worry, he's got an insurance policy, he's got a pension plan. Don't worry, you're good." And I'm like, "Okay." So I didn't worry. And I did get his pension. I did get his insurance policy. Um, and I was still working. And for the first 3 years, I'll be going on year 4. For the first 3 years, I was working full time and with part-time gigs, and I was okay. And then I decided to retire. And when it came time to retire, I ended up retiring on my Social Security, not his. So I forfeited his.
Okay, so let's have a conversation about that. People often say, "Oh, I'm going to draw their Social Security." But the question is whose Social Security is the highest?
Highest.
And that is important to run those numbers to. I didn't know this would turn into a money conversation, but I'm here for this because I think in going to Social Security's website, and you can print out how much you've made since the very first time. It'll tell you what your income would look like at age 62, da 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 da, all those different ones. And from my running of the numbers, whether you get it at 62 or you wait till 70 or whatever they have it,
70,
it's the
right?
same amount of money. You're just waiting to get what appears to be a larger lump sum. If you start getting it at the first amount of distribution, when you amortize it over the time value of money,
Right. It's the same.
right, but it's just this allure. Wait till you're 70, you're going to get this big amount. If you
Well,
start,
that's what the only difference is. The important thing to consider is that if you're not working, go ahead.
because
So
you
if
would
you're
be
60
taxed,
years
or if
old
you
and you're
are
not working,
working, right, the
if you
amount of that
are
they would,
working, you're going to
yeah,
get hit with, taxes that are going to be at the yin yang.
that's
So
right.
I waited and waited and waited because at 66 plus some amount, whatever, 65
66 and a
plus some
half
amount.
or something like that,
Right.
yeah.
You're not taxed. You can take your money. So I waited and then I took it all. And if I had waited till I was 70, it would have been about $100 more. And I'm like, really? I'm gonna wait till I'm 70 for $100 more a month. Woohoo.
Yep.
So I just took it. And so that's sort of the pension. His pension insurance went into a wealth management fund,
Hmm.
which hasn't been doing really well in the past 3 years because we haven't really had the best of the best.
Okay, so I took Mark's retirement uh, with the assistance of my financial advisor, and I went with an annuity. I never had one before, but made some really good choices with that. And I am grateful that we planned. I'm grateful that I've been able to work full time and do that. But I can tell you that was such a hard decision to sit down with the financial advisor and make that choice with the money that I received because he passed, whether it was the life insurance or the other things, because it was like it's one of the big girl decisions that I thought we would be making together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I put off doing that. I don't know how that was for you, but it was super hard for me.
It wasn't difficult. There are other things that are far more difficult, like getting rid of his clothes.
Okay. When
I
did
still
you
have the 3 years later, I still have a closet full of clothes. Not shoes, not pants, winter coats and shirts.
Okay, so you have done some purging, I'll say.
Yeah, can't get rid of them. Can't get rid of them. Every time I'm like, oh, no, I close the door. No, I can't. I wear all his t-shirts
Okay.
as pajamas. So I'm like, okay, that's okay. Of course, the man had 9,000 t-shirts, so but I can't get rid of them because they all say something on them. And I'm like, oh, remember this one?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
can't, I'm like, if I bring them down, and I don't have a problem bringing them to the thrift store, but I keep thinking if I go somewhere and I see a guy wearing this t-shirt, I'm gonna freak out. I'm gonna just freak out. So, nah. And I'm like, okay, when you're ready, you're ready. Like I said, the shoes, I threw the shoes away. That meaningless to me. Pair of stinky shoes, I don't care. But it's all those shirts that he wore so well that, oh, he looks so nice in this shirt. Or I take it out. Oh, remember that? Yeah. Oh, how about that? I'm like, okay, woohoo. And
Here, hold on.
yeah,
When people say, like when I used to hear people say before, oh, they're a widow, they're crazy. And do you know why we are? The things that we have to go through,
right.
the things that you have to endure, like throwing away your husband's shoes, throwing away your husband's toothbrush, throwing away your husband's underwear, throwing away all those different things, going to bed without them in the bed where you were and saw them.
Mhm.
Those things mess with your mind.
Yes, they
So I
do.
don't even take it lightly when you go, oh, no, for real. This will drive you insane. The detethering of your life from them. How
Yes.
have you literally kept yourself not from going crazy?
Um, well, I talk to him every day. So,
Now, before Harry passed, if you would have heard somebody say, I'm talking to somebody dead every day, what would your mind
well, the
have?
thing is, I would say to anybody, I just had this conversation with my sister, who I texted my sister on her birthday, and I sent her something from my dad. And I said to her, Mom and Dad whisper things to me all the time. What do they whisper to you? And I got no response. And I thought, okay, so they're not whispering to her. They're shouting to me. So I would say that different people manage these things differently. All the people in my life that have gone, all of them talk to me, and I talk to them all. So I'm very busy all day long talking to dead people. But and again, woo, it's really what happens to you as you get older, because all of the people that you knew begin to pass away.
So when you say you're talking to them, are you hearing your own voice in their words, or are you hearing their voice talking to
Oh,
you?
their voice for the most part.
And do
But
you think
sometimes I'll catch myself doing something and I'll laugh, going, ha ha, that's what mommy used to do.
it's literally them, or it's your memory of what they would say to you and what that would look like now?
Both. More so memory, but there's a little bit of like, maybe,
So, so you had signs or things that you feel like that was them showing up in spaces at all?
oh, there's always that, yes.
Oh, please share.
Um, I've always had numbers that roll, always. So it's a combination of 111, 311, 911, 1111, 711. I always joke about 711 because, it's like, oh, maybe I'll go get myself a cup of coffee. But those numbers roll, and what will happen is I'll look at the clock and it'll be 711. It won't happen for a really long time. And then suddenly, every time I look at the clock, it's 111, 711, 911, 311. I'm like, stop.
Who do you think that is when that's happening?
It's somebody.
Okay.
It's somebody. It's somebody saying hello. And it's happened pretty much all my life. It's usually a time when I think to myself, something is going on. I don't know what it is. And I just need to concentrate on
Mm.
something. And it sometimes isn't even a person. It's sometimes it's just something. Maybe it's anxiety, and I realize that there's something going on that I need to work out.
Mm.
So that happens, but I will just do things that will honor my parents. So I would know that something would make my dad happy, and I will think about that, or something will, make my mom happy, I'll think about that, or I'll do something for them. So, whether it's a meal, make their favorite foods, things like that. And I don't think that's crazy. Some people might think that's crazy, but I think that's called legacy. Is how these people live on.
Invoking their memory. Have you and your sister learned how to honor the way you grieve differently?
I don't know how she grieves, and I celebrate. So when there's a little bit of nervous anxiety in me, so that I might make jokes about it. I might, when I'm nervous about it, make a joke or two. So when my father was passing on and we were going to the hospital, it was very stressful. I might have made a number of odd jokes that she may have felt were inappropriate. So she was grieving in a totally different way while it was happening. Now that it's a million, my parents both passed away in 1995. So I still talk about them. And I would love to have conversations with my sister about them. But whenever I do bring them up, she'll say things like, I can't believe you're talking about this. And I'm like, well, I'm like, it hurts her. It hurts her. And it doesn't hurt me.
So how do
She
you
won't say it's hurting me, but she'll think that I'm talking about this almost like an obsession. And I'm talking about it because I'm thinking it's not an obsession. It's a legacy.
Yes.
Like, I want to, do you remember the time that mommy blah, 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 blah? And she'll say, I don't, that's not, or I don't remember it that way. And then I'm making her unhappy, nervous, anxious. And I'm like, that's not the, that's not the conversation I wanted to have. So I can't talk about my folks with anyone. So I have to talk to them straight on.
Wow. Okay. That is interesting. The isolation and the hush
Yes.
of the people that are no longer here, to no longer evoke their names, to no
I have a lot
longer.
of that isolation going on. I have a lot of that, because there's not a lot of people to talk about Harry with. His family isn't really my family.
Okay, so hold on. Not a lot of people that you can talk to about Harry.
Mhm.
That part right there
Mhm.
is why I have these conversations.
Right. And that's why I
Because
talk to Harry directly.
we need to have the ability to say their names, to talk
Yes.
about them, to remember the things about them did not just disappear afterwards. Our love for them still exists.
Yes. So this is this is on my desk. So sometimes I'll turn around and go, "Hi, Harry, how you doing?" I don't care if it's crazy. I don't care.
But I
I'm
don't
not
think it,
saying he's here. I'm not like, buying him clothes. I don't buy him food and, put it out on a plate. No, I don't do that. I
I'm
don't
glad to
dress
know
up
you're
as
not buying
I don't
them food
yeah.
and putting it on the plate. Okay,
I
but
don't dress up as him and go out, pretending I'm Harry. No, I'm not, I'm not doing that. I'm merely looking at him going, "Hey, how you doing, hon?" I'll do something during the day that I'll be like, "Oh, here's a few of those things." So I'll be in the kitchen, Harry be on the couch watching television. And I am one of those clunky, klutzy women that make a lot of noise. I'm not dainty, you know, I'm not ballerina.
How
So
tall
I'm
are
in the
you?
kitchen. Yeah, really. I'm in the kitchen
No,
and I
Joy,
open
how
the
tall are you?
cabinet. How old?
How
69.
tall? How tall?
Oh, 5'2.5".
Okay, okay.
So I'm not very tall, but you know, and I'm thin, but I'm a klutz. If it can fall, it will. If I can drop it, I will. You know, if I can trip, I will. Okay. And also, you know, I'm like, oh, so I'm big, I'm loud. So I'm in the kitchen cooking, right? And I go open a cabinet door and I go get something out of the cabinet door and I close the cabinet door, close again. And it, you know, so I'm in the kitchen, right? So now, you know, he's no longer alive. But what he would do when he was alive, he would shout, and don't forget to slam the kitchen, you know, cabinets, and don't forget to close the refrigerator door, and don't forget to close the lights. And he would say all these things because I wouldn't do it. I'd walk out of the room, forget to turn off the light. Don't forget all right, honey. So when I do that now, I'm giggling, going, yeah, sorry about that, because I still do it. When I wear a particular, if I wear any shoes with heels, like not sneakers, but shoes with heels, and you know, working from home, there'd be no reason for me to put heeled shoes on. But sometimes I would go out, so I'd have heeled shoes. So I'd be walking around, and he would say, and don't forget to pick up your feet when you're walking, and all of these things. So I still do that. I still do that.
And those things, those are the parts of grief and losing a spouse that no one really talks about out loud. But almost everybody is doing that. When you wear that outfit that you know what they would have said, their
Exactly.
thoughts, their words come through your mind on autopilot.
Oh,
It's
yes.
not like
You're
you
not going out
buried
with
it.
that, are you? You're not wearing that out, are you?
It's not like you
Okay.
buried them and all those things just
I'll
go
change.
away. They
Yep.
don't just go away. And the inability to not share that. And I don't understand why people don't realize we still love them.
Yeah. And even if you move on to someone else, even if you move on to someone else, it's like, it doesn't matter. Like when your parents pass away, you're not getting new parents, but all of those memories, they're still there. So they're going to still you're going to still run through them in your mind. They're not going to go away. Even if, you know, if you lose a friend or if you lose lose a husband or a wife, you may go on to do something else, but that 20 years of your life, 25, 40, how long it is, those memories just don't go, oh, I have new memories now.
And that is so important for a
How
widow.
do you, how do you deal with your old memories with your new husband?
Okay, I'm gonna answer that. Thank you for this conversation because we are somewhere down the road of this journey. And people would think, well, they've just gone on with their lives. You continue to exist, you continue to find a life, but the memory of them does not go away.
Mhm.
And even as we're wrapping up this conversation and people going, well, next year, this grief is going to be like, I'm not going to think of them and I'm not going to have these issues. I encourage you to embrace them
Mhm.
because why
Absolutely.
should we get rid of love? So how do I balance Fred, my current husband, and Mark as it comes up? I mean, so I Mark and I wore the same size shoe. Most of my winter socks are Mark's socks. My hiking boots and some of my gym shoes were Mark's shoes. I'll wear those sometimes, and I have one of my favorite pair of hiking boots, and they're actually like safety boots. And when I wear those, I just like, wow. I remember he would go, "You're not gonna wear my shoes, are you?" And I'm like, see what happened? See, now I'm wearing them all. See how that goes. The dark humor
Mhm.
comes up in amazing ways. And if it couldn't be any weirder, my current husband, Fred, his middle name is Mark.
There you go. There you go. Does he get jealous or does he laugh it off?
I've never called him Mark. When I started this nonprofit, remember when I was trying to get my YouTube channel, and Fred was literally texting his friends and contacting people. She needs 100 people on the YouTube. I need you to follow this. I need you to do this. He has been my biggest supporter. I actually did a podcast with him and another gentleman who married a widow, and they both said they're confident in who they are. They're not in competition with somebody that's deceased.
Mm.
I've never compared him to Mark to make him feel like this is a competition. I met him where he was as a person and how
Mhm.
that worked for me. The month of March is when Mark passed. That is a challenging time for me. And he gives me space. He'll tell me, say, yeah, you're getting a little punchy. And just so I know, not that he's saying it to change because I can't control that. Mark's birthday is in June. That is another difficult time for me. Our wedding anniversary is the day after my birthday. Yeah, so I have disconnected from the anniversary because I couldn't handle my birthday because I was so zoomed up about the wedding anniversary. So
Mm.
I just stopped thinking about it altogether. These are our
Mhm.
wedding bands. Um,
Oh.
and I wear this just, I mean,
Did you get that remade?
yes,
Here's another thing. I've got my wedding band and his wedding band, and I said to a friend of mine, I said, is it wrong if I were to take if I would take these to the jeweler and either sell them or she goes, no, that's not wrong at all. And I'm like, I don't know if I could do that.
and so I took it to the jeweler. The outside, the outer heart is Mark's. What can you see it?
Yes, I can.
The outer heart is Mark's wedding band, and the inner heart is mine. I wanted something I could wear
Mm-hmm.
that looked like jewelry, and I could always wear this, and it had purpose and meaning. To me, this is forever love, hearts on top of hearts,
Mm-hmm.
and I can wear this all the time. He's never, said a thing about feeling uncomfortable. That's never been it, and I love him for that. I mean, I've remarried and I've kept my late husband's last name,
Okay.
and
But you
so
also had children, so there was some things, there was
and
some
s-
reason.
and so but and so one of my coworkers, she was like, so when you get married, when are you going to change your last name? And I was like, doing what?
Yeah, really.
I was like, wow, this could be a game changer. Like, what if he thought me changing my last name? Some people are pretty stuck on that. Like, that
Right.
has to be a thing for them. And I asked him, I said, so, we're getting ready to get married. What do you think about the name thing? And he said, you change your name? He said, your children wouldn't have a parent with the same last name.
Right.
And I was like, okay, he gets it. But the
That's
second thing he said, and you kind of old to be doing it. That's a lot of work. I said, sir, you could have stopped at the nice part. You could have stopped
but
at
yeah, when I changed my name, it became so complicated because I went from a very short name to a longer name because I kept my father's name, I kept my name, and now it's like I have this ridiculous name, and every single institution has it a different way. So when I die, I won't have any room on my tombstone for was a great person. It will be AKA Joy, Joyce, Joy Susan, Joy Susan, Joy Susan Tamber, Joy Susan Tamber Brooks.
I never knew that. So to the question, um, I think about Mark daily every time I write. I mean, my last name is his same last name. And one of my so I'm a supervisor at work, and I've had a gentleman that has been sick for a while, and he passed on November 29th. So the day after Thanksgiving. I have been emotionally distracted
Mm.
thinking about one, his wife,
Mhm.
2, we were the same exact age.
Mm.
And wow,
It just brings you back. I mean, you wanna know something? Death is such a, it's so touching because it's when we realize how fragile we are as human beings. I mean, really. And when we're young, it does not phase us the same way. I mean, I shouldn't say that because when, you're very young and you lose somebody like a grandfather or a grandmother that you're very close with, it can be. And even, your rabbit or something when you're young, but you bounce back.
yes.
You bounce back. Some kids, I'm not saying every child does because some kids don't. But I'm only saying that as we get older, losing people, as I said, losing people, it happens more and more. And it's just it's just a reminder how fragile we are. So, and now you're not only empathizing that that this person's passed, but that he's got a wife, that he's got children. And then it goes back to you, remember me, remember Mark. I mean, all of these things replay themselves. So
But sometimes they don't because I work with a lot between coaching widows and a lot of stuff I do. It doesn't always bring me back, but for some reason, this made me start thinking what that felt like the first day, what that felt like the second day, what that felt like the third day. But this grief brought me into a different space because I've never had an employee pass. So he was
mm,
getting sick, and I was trying to restructure the workload. I could see even though he may have been showing up for work, I knew his capacity was diminished. So trying to give different things he could do that was value added versus having other people learn what he was doing to fill in this gap, to start developing a new job position because I was going to have to hire somebody else. And I've often heard people talk about, well, when you pass, your employer doesn't care, they're just going to replace you. And now to be in this space where I'm having to replace, I try to look at it, I'm not replacing that person. I'm finding somebody else to accomplish this task that needs to be done.
right. That's right.
Nobody can replace him,
Place it right.
but somebody
That's very
else,
important.
right. So no one can replace him, but this task still needs to be completed. You
That's right.
cannot ignore the reality that task needs completion versus that person is not replaceable. And so this person had an autoimmune system problem. So he had not been in the office. I met him one time and had been his supervisor for like 2 years. We talked on the phone. And the interesting thing that happened, I got bronchitis back in August. And so September, October, I was horrible. I could hardly walk up to my steps without breathing and just being labored and just difficult. And as I started getting better, I started thinking, this is how he's been feeling for years. His
Forever.
body hasn't been showing up, and he doesn't get to be in the office to have this little small talk. And I was like, Tina, you can do better. So I started calling him more over small conversations, but just to talk to him and to be there. And I saw him just warm up to that. And I just say that we don't know what people are going through until we've walked in their shoes a little bit.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and so to this conversation, being able to talk about Harry, having a safe space. We need people to understand that what I'm going through may look a little different than what you're going through, but that doesn't mean I want you to run away. I want you to meet me where I'm at.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. It's I would say that I'm not unhappy.
Okay.
Um I would say that I am alone, but I'm not lonely.
But have you always been a by yourself kind of person, or were you
Yes,
okay, so this is not abnormal. It's not like you were
right.
a super sociable person when Harry was living and then he passed and you retreated. This has been your
Right.
mode of operation.
But, it does occur to me that it's not, that my ability to take care of myself when I was younger had a different meaning than it does now, because
Okay.
I'm getting older, and being alone, I could need help, and there won't be anybody here.
Oh, you mean like if you were to fall or do something where,
Yeah, I
okay,
fall and I can't get up, type of a thing.
right.
And I realize, you know, and that's not a reason to have friends, but I realized, okay, it's something to think about, and I contemplate these things often. I've had people say to me, you should get out and meet people. You should, one of my friends says, you don't like to go out for dinner. You don't like to do this. You don't like to do that. You're never going to meet anybody. And I'm like, meet anybody? Are you trying to tell me that I should be dating? She goes, well, it could happen. And I'm like, I understand, but like, I don't enjoy going out for dinner. I never have. I'm more happy making dinner and inviting friends over.
Okay.
And I
So,
understand, and she would say, yeah, but, and I would be like, you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong. It would be a way for me to meet more people. But, if I'm always going out with the concept, oh, I'm going to meet somebody new. Well, that makes it, that,
too
that
much
turns it
pressure.
into, yeah, it's just artificial.
So okay, so let's go back to something. Would you want a bigger human community?
I think that oh gosh, I think that I should have it. I don't know what I would do with it if I had it.
Do you
Because I
still
think I would be like, leave me alone, please.
Are you still doing email and coffee?
The podcast is still there. It's getting difficult as it evolves because I'm trying to move away from email. I'm trying to move into people and places and things,
Oh, so
and
your podcast is morphing into something different.
it morphed within the first year.
Okay.
And I realized, I just need to talk to people that can entertain, have a conversation, tell a story, be lively, and share something that's not the same conversation as I had before. So
Ooh. Authentic,
that's
unique, and entertaining.
yeah, exactly. And that means, having to find these people out there. Where are those people? Like, where are they? And they're not all at LinkedIn.
Mm,
They're not all at, Facebook. They're not all in Instagram. They're not all in an X. Where are they? I need to network with people to find out who they know. And I say
mm.
that to people when I talk to them. But I don't think that everybody understands YouTube or understands the podcast. I don't think when I say lay people, it's not like I'm, an entertainer or I'm a celebrity or something. But I don't think that lay people understand what I'm doing.
Non-podcasters.
I don't think that they understand. So, I'll get a lot of people going, okay, I'll let you know if I meet somebody, and nobody.
So
So,
are you part of any of these podcasts or network groups where people get on each other's podcasts? I've seen a lot of
uh,
those things crop up.
I met a woman that does that, and
Oh,
she's been very helpful with me.
okay.
Um, and I'm having a conversation with somebody that contacted me on LinkedIn that has some sort of a network, and I'm going to find out a little bit more about that.
Okay.
But some of the podcaster groups that I belong with have all of these spiritual coaches and work coaches, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I've talked about that. That was the first 3 years of my podcast. I'm going into year 5. I need to meet, other people.
Wow, that 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years. Yeah.
So if you had
So
to pick of 2 or 3 types of people, what would they be, or what would their interests be? What would be like the prime? Anybody listening, if you hear these people
Okay,
and know
there you
them,
go.
yeah, what would be
So,
the type of people?
I would love to talk like anybody like yourself that has been through something, but you're able to have an intelligent conversation and share stuff. That you have questions that you can ask me, I can ask you. We can fill a conversation without going, so Tina, what's new with you? We're jumping all over the place, and it's just like we keep going. We could do this for 5 more hours.
Like this right now?
Like this. So people like yourself that have just got something to share, have a personality, think things through, are unique. You could have a job that, is just passionate, and it could be any kind of a job at all, but how you found that job is interesting.
Yes.
Or the career that you picked is interesting. Why? It's not interesting, your career in the military. Okay, a lot of people have done that, but how you found it, that's your story. And
Right.
how you delivered, that's even more of a story. And those are the types of things. So it can really be anybody, but it could be anybody that is not self-conscious in talking about themselves, their experience, their family, friends, and things of that nature.
Somebody's a storyteller.
Now, I've been looking for people that are somewhat well known. I'm not, looking for Brad Pitt to be on the show. But up there are, there are, if somebody, there have been celebrities, I'll call them celebrities, that I've connected with over time. Some of them are authors, some of them are actors, some of them are hosts, different types of people. And I have, connected with them and try to get them to be on the show. Some people ghost me, some people say no. It doesn't matter. I keep on reaching out. I really don't care. I'll be on YouTube. I'll be like, oh, this is, I like their YouTube stuff, and I'll watch a few of their stuff, and I'll subscribe to their channel, and I'll be like, oh, they would be fun in my show. I'll connect with them. This is how I find people.
Okay.
And, I just keep on doing it. I just reach out. If, like I said, if they ghost me, that's fine. If they say no, that's fine.
That's
If
fair.
they say yes, hey, woohoo, I'm really happy. I got another show.
Totally different subject. How does your grief look different now than year 1?
It has settled into my routine.
Is that your safe space, having a routine also?
Oh gosh, yes. I'm a routine hound. So wake up in the morning, have coffee, and in my head, I'm always thinking, Harry, do you want a cup? Always, every morning. Like you had mentioned about socks and shoes, I wear Harry socks, and I'll put them on and I'll think about him. His t-shirts for bedtime, so I think about him then. So it's all gotten into a little bit of a groove. I am not a crier. And grief for me is not sadness. Is the word melancholy better than sadness?
I would think melancholy is kind of like just to me, where sadness is that it's there's a different a heavy weight or something.
Yeah, it's not heavy. It's very light. It's very light. And I would say that is very unique for me because it's all of the people in my life that have passed. I grieved over my mom and my dad. I cried when Harry passed, but it quickly became, because it wasn't any surprise. It wasn't like, oh, they were here 1 minute and then gone the next. It was such a surprise. They were all
like me on
sick.
vacation. Yeah, that.
They were, Harry was sick. My father was sick. My mother was a surprise, but my mother was a surprise. But that was the first death where I went into I went into a spiral of grief that became all too familiar. So by the time Harry passed, I was like, been here, done that. I'm not doing this to myself. And
Okay.
I was able to turn it into remembrance.
Okay, what is for someone struggling with remembrance? What are some ways that that looks like?
Well, somebody may remember, oh, remember when we went out for that dinner and, oh, I love the way he smelled and, he was wearing that suit and then they'll begin to cry. Oh, I miss those dinners. And now I'm all alone. And now it becomes this utter spiral of sadness. It's all about you. No, it's not about you. It shouldn't be about you. In other words, it's not like you left me. It's not like I'm angry. It's not that's not the feeling that it is. Do I think that? Yes. Yes. Do I think that? Absolutely. I say things all the time like, oh my goodness, Harry, why did you do this to me? But I'm not going to spiral down into depression. He left me, now he's dead and now I'm alone and I got this house. What am I going to do? Oh my God. And I'm not going to do that. I'm like, okay, if I'm feeling this anxiety about the house, is it time to sell the house?
Oh,
Okay. So it's more like, okay, yes, I have a problem. Yes, I'm alone in this problem. And yes, I need to solve the problem. He didn't intentionally set it up. Would I be doing this with him if he were alive? Yes, but he's not. That's reality. So we would have these situations in any case.
okay.
So that I'm forced to do it alone, that is the reality. And there is the melancholy that's more of a sadness, but I'm not going to spiral out of control. And that's really been a life lesson for me with all problems. You have a
Right.
problem with work, right? You go to work, you hate your boss, and you're thinking, what do I do? And every day you do this until it's like Sunday night where you're like, oh God, because it's going to be Monday soon and you're going to have to go. You've got a problem.
Right.
Now, how are you going to solve the problem? Do you look at your husband or your wife and say, you solved the problem for me? This is your problem. So that you have somebody that understands your problem, that's wonderful. That you have somebody you could talk over your problem with, that's wonderful. But in essence, you're going to have to solve that work problem. You're going to have to solve that relationship problem that is, that you have. I'm going to have to solve this money problem, this house problem, whatever it is, because I'm alone now and he's not here to help me with it.
Mm. It's
Okay.
not a personal attack. This is just part of life and what happened.
Right, exactly. So I realize all of those things, and I realize that I have the option to take a memory and make it really sad and difficult to remember, or turn it into a celebration. And I've decided I like celebrations.
And that choice, when did you start making that choice? Was that year one you were making those types of choices or
Yeah, well, it started with my mom. So in the
okay.
beginning, no, it wasn't that way with my mom. I would say that I had 2 or 3 years of grief with my mother.
Okay. And just for thank you for sharing that because I don't want people to think like we waved a magic wand and this is what we're doing. Like this has
No.
been forging through hot lava to get
Yeah,
to
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
space.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was definitely hot lava because I had just gotten married. I lost my mother. I lost my father. So I had a new husband and no mom and dad. So nobody to share this new experience with my mom and dad. You know how you go to your mom's and you talk about stuff with mom and mom comes over and have dinner and it's the family and your husband calls your mom. It's all this interact there, none of it. Everything's gone. So it's
Mm,
me and my husband and nobody on my family side.
wow.
And that was very difficult for a long time. For a long
Yeah.
time. And again, I lost my mom, and within the next month, I lost my father. So I was grieving over my mom and dad, and I was just married.
Right.
Talk
That
about
timeline.
and that was, oh, it was 2, 3 years. And it was, I was just getting my shit together when 9/11 hit.
Right.
And I was in New York for 9/11. And I was reminded, yeah, we're pretty fragile here. You could die at any minute. And I spiraled again. And I ended up in therapy at that point. And it took me a long time to get it together. So I'm at a 15-year mark. My mother and father died in 1995. It's 25. It's 30 years. I you know I am so practiced in death that it's not that it doesn't faze me, but I celebrate the life of it, and I realize how important it is to do that with people, with everyone.
It sounds like you've embraced.
Yes, it's a celebration. So if you have people around you and they're cluttering your life with bullshit, I would say, why don't you get people around you that can help you celebrate? Because when those people who are around you, if they're, family members that are going through things, that's different. I'm talking about, for the drinking buddy that you just see when you're drinking.
Mhm.
What relationship is that? Think about that. Think about that. you
I
know
think that is important. Sometimes we just let things happen and we don't take responsibility for our own life,
yeah.
and sometimes requiring that change. So to flip it around a little bit, I've been
Mhm.
asking you questions of me. We'll make it the Joy Show. I'll make it now you're the host and see if you have some questions of me.
So, with your the podcast and your network, and you're talking to widows, do you find that the conversations bring you to, it's bittersweet, it's that melancholy, I don't know what the word, I'll call it bittersweet, not melancholy, but bring you to that a sadness where you can help them celebrate? Or are you finding that you sometimes get sucked into more sadness?
More of the A because that's my personality. Um, More of the A because I think we attract what is like to us.
Mhm.
And by default, I am always trying to find the silver lining. By default, I am more of my faith that I trust God that there's a purpose and a reason for my life and my existence. And He is guiding me on this path to show up in humanity to serve the bereaved. But life should be celebrated. Life should be, but I do respect those people that want to stay in lament 20, 30, 40 years, people who want to be alone, people who have identified being miserable as equating to their grief. I'm not here to pull and rip you out of that.
Yeah.
But if you tell me you want to get out, I will stand here with the rope around my waist as you come out of the hot lava and you hold on to the rope, and I'll be here waving the light saying I'm right here. Because what I have found, three different things that tend to have people stuck in their grief. One, a person that feels like their loved one was a personal attack to them. That they feel like God looked throughout humanity, found me, and said, I'm taking your loved one because you're getting punished. That person is often going to be stuck because they have now made the creator of the universe attacking them. Where do you win from that?
Mhm.
The second person that is using unhealthy coping skills, and they're often doing it in the shadows. They're drinking privately. They're doing drugs privately. They're having sex. They're effing their way through grief. they're working out so hard, but people that are using unhealthy coping skills. And the third is a person that isolates. They have decided, not by personality type, they have withdrawn themselves from life and they have now become a hermit because going any place that they went to with their spouse is too painful. I remember going to the grocery store and going down the Oreo cookie aisle and losing my whole shiggity because Mark loved Chip Ahoy's and Oreos. I don't buy
I
those
still do that.
but I'm saying, but if I would have said I'm not going to that, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing all those things, do I not go and remember him,
That's
or
right.
do I close
That's the
myself?
celebration.
Right. So those people, when I identify their explicitly operating in one or three or all of those things, I'm not the cup of tea for you because if I tell you that those are the things that are going to get you stuck and you're asking me to help you get you unstuck, but you want to remain doing those three things, we're not a good match. I
Yeah.
will not be the grief coach for you because you've determined you want unrealistic expectations and I'm not the girl for that.
Yeah.
I was out in California visiting my daughter for her birthday and I had the opportunity to connect with three widows I had met on TikTok. Amazing, amazing day. Those widows want to do more things with Widowhood Real Talk with Tina. They have ideas, they have things that they want to do with the organization, and how can they do more? That's what I want because I feel being a widow, I should be celebrated. I laid up here and did till death do you part. I should not be whisked away into a wearing dark clothing and act like I don't exist anymore. I'm a whole vibrant person. If anything, I would think that some young people would want to come sit underneath and get some tutelage and get some understanding and gain some knowledge on how to navigate life because they want to know what's on the other side of that. How do I prepare? Love them. Don't argue about the socks that are on the floor. Don't worry about they farted in the middle of the bed right after having sex. Don't worry about that they forgot your birthday, but they still love you because when they die,
That's right.
you're not going to care.
You're not gonna, and you're gonna go back and say, remember that stupid conversation that I had? I wish I never had it. Wish I never said that. Wish I just picked up the socks. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Well, in many cases, it is almost, well, it is not almost biblical. It is biblical because in the Bible, it says, take care of the widowed and orphaned.
That is right here, little post-it note. So Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, this nonprofit is not a religious-based organization. Whatever your faith is, whatever it is your belief, I am here to support the bereaved. Tina personally, Tina, personally, my relationship with God is the only reason why I am doing this because I believe this is what God has called me to do. And right here are some verses that I put right here to remind myself. Psalm 68:5, God is a defender. And the verse that you're talking about is 2 Corinthians 1:4. Comfort those who are troubled. Oh no, this is one of the for me. Comfort those who are troubled by the comfort which me myself, I have been comforted by God with. My ability to comfort or hold space for other people is based off of my relationship and what God has done for me. 1 Timothy 5:11 and 14, young widows, that you should remarry, that the word tells you that versus some people that think that we're supposed to burn our bodies after our husband died because we don't get to live no more. I mean, if this is that God is my defender, Psalm 68:5, that my right to live and continue to exist, I feel like is a charge and mandated from God to be able to do that. And the Bible says, yes, to care for the widow. So if you're professing this faith and you're not doing anything that the Bible says about your faith, what are you doing?
I know. Well, You know, one of the thing, one of the things that I decided to do when I retired was, I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? You're gonna laugh at this one. I'm gonna learn Hebrew and I'm gonna read the Bible in Hebrew.
There is something to be said for that. I mean, I have a translator right
And that's
here
what I'm doing.
that when I read through the Bible and see it in that origin language and look at some of those words, there's a difference. I
Oh, it's totally different.
I'm I can see the book right there that was one of the things actually when Mark passed that I spent a lot of time. I was like, okay, I've been saying I believe this thing. What does this look like now? Because this is the rubber hitting the road. Like, what does this say? Like, I wanted to go back and read that. I'm not doing this for fun or for fancy fare. I'm placing all the eternity in commitment for this.
Right.
This needs to be, I have to search, what is it? I need to seek out my own soul salvation in fear and trembling. This is not something I'm resting to somebody else's hands once a week. This is the long game for me.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's also for me, it's you know, in our age, it's everybody keeps saying, oh, you know, what's your story? What's your experience? Tell me your journey. And I'm like, you know, while we're doing that now, and everybody gets on YouTube and they talk about themselves and they're crying, oh, I had this thing happen to me," and they tell their stories, but in the meantime, they're not reading the stories,
Mm.
the real stories. And when you read those stories, there's, you know, Moses, the hero. Let's read a story about a hero. Oh, we're going to do Star Wars? No, we're going back to one of the original heroes. So, you know, I thought to myself, as I do that, I'm like, you know what? I'd like to read it in the original language. And I'm thinking, so then do it. Because I really feel that those stories, when you read those stories again, whether it's the original language or whether you're just reading them again and giving them thought, and you think about them again, suddenly those stories start to replay again and again and again. And you're like, oh, you know what? We're all having the same stories. There's something about me in this story. So, I'm looking at stories, and these are all the things that I do that other people, I can't necessarily share them with other people because they don't get what I'm doing. So I've got my little study buddy that I study with on Sunday. And
That's
these are
okay.
these are the things that I'm like, well, my girlfriend is saying, you should go out for dinner and meet people. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing a study buddy on Sunday, and that satisfies me. What is this study buddy going to do for me? Probably nothing. Never going to be in my house. Lives in New Jersey. I'll probably never meet her. Maybe, maybe not. You know, the point is, I'm not looking for.
You're not looking for a new companion. You're not
I'm
looking,
not looking for artificial activities. I'm looking
but
for
you're
things that.
looking to do things that satisfy and please you. And you are 69. I hear you saying, I don't know how much time I have left, but I'm going to do the things I enjoy because this is what I worked hard to do. So if I get to spend an, an abundant amount of time of studying the word and doing that, and that brings me joy, I'm not hurting nobody. I'm not doing something. My happiness don't need to
Right.
look like what somebody else does. I think
I
that's
doubt that on my
important.
deathbed, when I die, I'm going to be like, oh, I should have gone to that restaurant. I doubt that's going to happen. And
I'm dying with
even this one on my deathbed. Oh, I should have taken that vacation. Really? Who cares? You're gonna die. You're going. What does that memory of that vacation mean to you? While in the meantime, I would be like, I'm really glad, I followed really what I wanted to do. Now, would I like to travel? Yes. Would I like to travel alone? Absolutely not. Do I want to share my travels with somebody else? Yes. Can you do that right now? No. Sad? Yes. Depressed? No. Move on. So, you know, these are the real things of widowhood, but these are the real things of life in general, because you could be married with somebody and every vacation you take can be like, he wants to go here and I want to do this and he's going to do what he wants to do. You know, you could have that in real life. And I'm sure people have that. Or I have to take a vacation on my own because he doesn't want to do what I want to do. Or we're going to, you know, we're going to Aruba again, you know, and, you know, whatever. There have been situations in my life where I've done things with my husband that haven't been the best in the world. And we had to do what we had to do, right? You know,
That's the
what?
majority of life.
Right? That's life. So, you know, that I'm able to come to terms and say, what do you want to do that you know, that bucket list that everybody seems to talk about. I'm like, I don't really have a big bucket list. I mean, I really don't. And I'm like, okay, so what is on your bucket list? You've got to have something you want to do. And I was like, you know, and when it came down to it, I was like, I want to learn Hebrew and read the Bible with somebody. All right, do it. I want to write a book. Okay, do it. And that's, you know, I'm like, what else?
Write a book about.
It's sort of along the lines of those stories,
Okay.
right? So I've always been
You know what?
I
No,
don't,
no, no. I think we're going to pick this up. I don't want to. I want to. This
oh,
seems like a
another
good.
conversation
Yes,
next year when maybe I've written another page in my book.
exactly. I think we will pick this up next December. I'm gonna put a pin right there to.
Oh, wouldn't it be nice if a book was like written by that time?
Okay. So I'm not going to answer that. I'm going to let you ask me one more question, then we're going to wrap up. She goes with that.
Yeah, really. So so I mean, really, what do you, I mean, there's a difference between a young widow and an older widow, right? You know, hopefully an older widow is more mature,
I'm
but a
going to say a
young
young
widow,
widow probably has small children at home and probably in her 20s or
yeah, a
30s.
young
Okay.
woman has um, uh, so many loose ends, so many loose ends. And do you have, I mean, within your network, are you finding you have a lot of these
Oh gosh,
women?
yes. Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, the beautiful thing in this morbid scenario, we just had a big storm this season in Tampa. Two widows with daughters age 4 were able to get together and connect from meeting in between the widowhood. The women and the men, because we have a men's only grief support group that meets the second Thursday of the month. The network of people willing to connect and want community
Right.
is huge. And when you find community that is not looking to gain anything from you, but just be there and be supportive,
Right.
is empowering. I mean, it is a nonprofit. I do have to have fundraisers. We're applying for grants because it's not cheap to produce a podcast that's seen on 15 different applications, edited, provided, social content, all the different events and things that we have. So it is a nonprofit. We do have to solicit people for money, for donations, but that reach, the content to go out. Right now, we're in 105 different countries with over 3.8 million views. When I look and see that there's someone in,
When I saw that, I was like, whoa, I was so happy to see that for you.
I'm like, Bangladesh, there's somebody in Bangladesh listening to a podcast. But you know what? Losing a loved one is universal.
Yes, it is. I
But
mean, we're all
making,
human.
and just like that Walk for Love event that you participated in, to see that literally people sharing stories of their loved one's name, and knowing that you are not alone, that community exists.
Right.
We don't have to be embarrassed about missing our loved one. We should be able to celebrate them.
Exactly. That's the point, and if you have to celebrate it with strangers, that's okay.
And I thought that when I first was going to start connecting with the young widows, I thought it would be military related because I'm in the army. I'm thinking conflict, but there are so many people, car accidents, different things, work things, um, having more widows the age of 26 to 30. I
Yeah.
am finding in connecting with small children, different stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of that did come out of COVID,
Mhm.
for whatever different reasons, talking
Right.
to a lot of widows now that are in that space. And so that's actually why we have a Discord. So if anybody's listening and they want to connect on the Discord, because that's not connected to a social media platform, that's a space for people to connect. And we have that because when you can't sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning, you want someplace where you can connect and know somebody's awake. So yeah,
Yeah,
the
there are a
younger
lot of moving
widows.
parts. There's a lot of, I mean, it's a totally different grief when you're young, widow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have. I mean, you're raising. I mean, looking at my son and seeing his dad and him as an adult is different than seeing my son as a minor and thinking about how do I raise him in his dad's
Now, is
absence.
that how do you tell a small child that about mom, mom and dad? My neighbor had a 3-year-old, and her husband passed away. She couldn't tell that child for a number of years, and the meet with was it she was 4 years old. So the daughter is saying, "Where's daddy?" And she's lying to the child. Daddy had to go away on business for as long as that 4-year-old, because the 4-year-old has no concept of death.
But
And to
there
tell
are,
the child, "Oh, daddy died, had a car accident,"
but
that's
there,
like,
but there are books. There's resources. There are
yes.
there, and
But
so you have to.
she
Yes,
needed to find the right time when she knew her daughter was going to be able to take it in without nightmares,
but you know what?
without like,
Nightmares
without,
may be part of my story.
yes, but a 3 or 4-year-old with,
I know people who have learned that I have a widow who was pregnant when her husband passed, and how she introduced that into the child's life from a very early age. There are ways to do it.
right. But
On our website, we have a list of different books and resources talking about that from different perspectives as it relates to having that conversation. So there are ways instead of
there are always,
having to fabricate it. It just depends
right,
on what your comfort level is as a deliverer of that information, because children are more resilient than we give them credit for. Most of the time, it's our ability as adults to not know how to
right,
navigate the difficult
right.
waters.
Well, the funny thing is that the daughter, it didn't take the daughter long to be able to put it together. And
Good.
I remember her saying to her mom, I was talking to daddy the other day and he told me to tell you he was okay. So, and this was, before she had really told her the story that daddy was dead.
Wow.
So, kids do have a way of knowing, but it's difficult. It's like I said, it is a whole bunch of moving parts for younger widows with
I
children.
think this whole thing is different moving parts for different age groups. I,
Absolutely. Well,
I,
we know that, but there's a whole bunch of moving parts.
it
I mean,
is.
a whole bunch of moving parts
I
for
think our
younger.
next conversation, I want to talk about your book and in-laws.
Oh, in-laws. Huh. I never had in-laws.
I'm gonna let it pause right there. I'm gonna let you say wrap up this conversation.
So, we're all unique, and I do recommend, and I should myself be be more active in your group. And I've said this to myself at least once a month, like, oh, you know what? I really need to connect with Tina. I really need to get more involved. And I'm like, yeah, I got to do that. And then, oh, I forgot to talk to Tina. So when you connected with me, I was like, you see, God's telling me to do this. So he's bringing us together for a reason. So I do need to get more involved. So there you go. So I don't know. I know you have a grief for men, but I don't know if you have other things that are remote, but
I do.
do
So
let me know.
on the second Thursday of the month, we have a men's only. And
Right.
then on the last Thursday of the month, I host a group, peer support group for people who are grieving. The one on the last Thursday of the month is open to anybody. Men don't talk already. I should say this. I have found that men who are grieving struggle more to find community than women do. And that is why I intentionally wanted to make a space for men only. And the gentleman, James Price, who leads that group, is a widower himself. And so when we spoke a lot and just felt like he would be a person that was a good fit for men to have a space to go and talk and be with other men. The group that I host on the last Thursday of the month is open to anyone. So maybe you'll start joining us and see you there.
Yeah, maybe, because I remember in the beginning I was, well, about a year ago, I think I was joining it, and I fell
Right.
out of the group. And I, for whatever reason, I fell out of the group. But I think that it probably would be good for me.
Okay. I would love to see
I
you
don't,
there.
yeah, I don't really need, I
It may
guess
be opportunity for you to give back, not so much as needed for you, but an
exactly. I
opportunity
don't
to
have,
create space. Yes.
yeah, but listening and being part of a group, is a good human thing to do.
And so on that note, we say good night.
Good night. Have a wonderful evening. What time is it anyway?
8:37 here.
Oh gosh, it's time for me to go to bed. That's what happens when you get old. You're up at 5 and you go to sleep at 8. You're lucky I'm not in my pajamas.
Good night, Widowhood.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.